And then I moved here where I live now to Scotland. I live in Edinburgh now.
Yeah, I mean that was actually where I wanted to go next. What kind of went into that decision? You left the U.S. You were from New York originally too, yeah? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where.
yeah.
So what kind of factored into the Edinburgh decision? Whatever you want to share, anyway. And it sounds like you were considering Europe for a while, but why is that? And what finally got you to the UK?
Well, I toured the UK. I was touring the UK pretty regularly, and I'd been wanting to get out of New York for a while. There was a lot of it's just quite a stressful place, especially when you're like the center of a art and music movement, and everyone's projecting their stuff onto you. Where they're projecting their daddy issues onto you. There becomes a lot of stress, and then 9/11 happened, and I just felt like I was living in the middle of a target, like a bullseye. And every day on the radio, you would hear, "It's going to happen again. Are you ready? It's going to happen again. Are you ready?" It's like, I'm just trying to write a song. So I'd been wanting to leave for a while. And then there were some family issues and things of health issues in my family. And we just felt like we want a new start somewhere else. And these signs kept pointing to Edinburgh. A record label wanted to put out my album. They were based in Edinburgh. I got invited to do the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And so I came over and did that and just fell in love with the city. It's just enchantingly beautiful. And a year later, I moved here. And BBC Radio 4 offered me a comedy series. And so I did 3 seasons of a comedy series called The Latch Chronicles with them. And it's just a delightful, it's a delightful town, Edinburgh. It's enchanting. The architecture's from the 13th and 1400s, it never got bombed during World War II, so everything's still intact. And the comedy scene is very strong here. The music scene's not as strong in Edinburgh as it is in Glasgow. And that's unfortunate, but this is where I am here and now.
No, it is a wonderful place. I mean, I'm doing the Edinburgh Fringe for the first time in 2023. I'll have already done it by the time this is out, but yeah, like I'm doing Edinburgh, and I've only ever been to Edinburgh as a tourist, but I got engaged there, so
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's a special
So
place to me too.
where were you when you proposed?
So I was in, like in Prince's Square Garden.
Princess Garden, yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
all right. Sometimes I accidentally say Princess Street, and my wife, my now wife, always corrects me because I'm like, but yeah.
Oh,
So
it's
is it Prince?
Princess Street.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Whatever it is, I always say if it's not, then
The square thing is wrong.
Okay, that's what I say then. I say the wrong thing and then my wife corrects me. So either
Okay.
I'm saying square or I'm saying street. But yeah. So Princess Street Garden, where there's like there's the one like kind of big dip where you go like down the hill and up the other one. Like the big one, and then through
Yeah.
that you can see all the castles and just like
Okay. Yes,
you know what
I very, very, very much know it. And it's the reason why I asked you where you were when you proposed, because I had a feeling that's where it was. And
yeah.
I'm going to tell you now why that was such a magical place for you to propose.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first time I came to Edinburgh, that street you're talking about, it's called the Mound.
Okay.
And as you drive up, you see the castle on the hill, and next to it are those beautiful white buildings there on the sort of on the cliff. They're called Ramsay Garden. So the first time I was on tour, I think it was with Hamill on Trial, and I was going up the Mound, and I saw that tableau, and I had this feeling, a sort of deja vu kind of feeling, but it was stronger and more significant, as if it was a deja vu of something that was going to happen, not something that did happen. It was a very odd feeling. And then I went and did the show, and it was a tour. So you do the show, you don't get to see much of the city, hotel, next day you're in a new town. like a year later, I'm back on another 12 city tour, driving, not really, where am I now? And next thing I know, I'm driving up that street again, and there's that tableau again. And I got the feeling again. I was like, wait a second, this isn't a deja vu. I was here before. And that's where I had this weird feeling before. What the hell? So I really got out and explored the city after that gig and just was like, this city's pretty cool. Then we moved here, and my son was 5 when we moved here. So he was about 6, and I was walking him to school through Prince's Garden, right? And we go through the garden and we climb over the railing onto the street where that mound is, onto that curve.
Yes.
We're talking about. At which point my son says, I feel really weird. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, there's something like magic or weird here. And I was like, really? Because that was the exact spot, So that really stuck with me. And then a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was doing some research on one of my favorite songwriters of all time, Phil Oakes. I don't know if you're familiar with Phil Oakes.
Love Phil Oakes.
Okay, I love Phil. I could. This is the first time you're getting an exclusive here, Ron. I'm the guy who stole the Phil Oakes poster off the wall of Folk City when they closed.
No kidding. Nice.
I have the autograph. The statute of limitations are over, and if anyone asks, this is a parody broadcast. It's not true.
Perfect.
But that's just how much I love Phil. So I'm reading up on Phil, and I get to this passage saying that he has these roots in Edinburgh, and his grandfather had a shop up on the Royal Mile. I'm like, whoa, that's wild. Then I find out that a year after he died, his friend took the ashes, came to Edinburgh with the ashes, and threw them over the cliff on that spot where I was having all those experiences.
No way, dude.
Yeah.
That is so, well, I can add some more trippiness here. I mean, first of all, I, like so many other people, I did a version of Love Me, I'm a Liberal a couple years ago that did kind of okay online. So I'm a big Phil Oakes guy too. And I think I did it shortly after I proposed. Like, I think that all happened shortly after my proposal. Wow, that is trippy, dude. And also, another, I mean, you mentioned you were touring with Hamill, who is a close mutual friend of both of ours.
So, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. That was how Hamill kind of put us in touch. I mean, I knew about you online for many years, but Hamill introduced us.
I thought for some reason it was Rick Shapiro that was the connection.
No, I know Rick Shapiro a little bit. Like, we've definitely met a handful of times, and I know he was a big sidewalk guy back in the day, but I didn't know him then. And, but Hamill and I have been buddies since like 2004.
My God. Well, Hamill's one of my favorite all-time performers. I think he's one of the greatest performers, one of the greatest songwriters, a wonderful human being. I wrote a song for him called Hamill on Trial when he got in the car accident. Have you ever heard Hamill on Trial? Have you heard what he does with a guitar? If you've never heard Hamill on Trial, then you've never heard a star.
Dude, yeah. No, I love that guy. I first heard about him through a friend, and then he ended up we became friends because I was actually the first podcast he ever did. I had this goofy little, I was like 20 years old. I had this goofy little podcast, and I reached out. He was on tour with Ani DeFranco, and he was the opening act. So I thought, well, maybe he's not going to have much to do if he's the opening act. So I just sent an email, I think, to like the label or something, because I think he was on her label at the time. And I just said, hey, I have this podcast. I didn't make it out like I was like bigger than I was. I was just like, I just have this little podcast, but I'm a big Hamill on Trial fan. Would he be willing to do it? And he like called me, and he's like, yeah, dude, I think these podcast things sound neat. They remind me of like fanzines from like the 90s or something. Yeah. He's like, I've never done one before, but yeah, why not? Let me see what this is all about. And so that's like awesome. He did a podcast with me, and it was really cool.
Yeah, when he did that he came back from his first tour with Ani. I always remember this. I asked him how it went. And he said, Latch, I think you're going to identify with this. I'm like, what? He said, Well, I open up for Ani. It's 2,000 of her fans. None of them know me. They're there to see her. And out comes this sweaty, bald guy just screaming at them in a microphone. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. But they loved it. He's like, I got a standing ovation. They called me back for an encore. I go, well, Ed, that sounds fantastic. He goes, no, Latch. On the third song in the seventh row, halfway through the song, someone turned and talked to somebody else during my song. he's like, that's what I remember. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I could so relate. You forget the 2,000 people who gave you an ovation. You remember that person in the seventh row who talked during the third song.
That's that's comedians. We could really relate to that too. It's like there's that meme they made about it where it's like you see this room full of laughing people and then one person like sitting cross-armed or talking to their friends, and it's like what the comedian sees, and it's those two people.
It's so true.
So true, man. So do you think you were able to give your children, or how many kids do you have? Is it just one or
one? Henry.
Okay. Do you think you were able to give your son a better life in Scotland than he would have had in the United States?
Well, it's not a controlled experiment, but I mean, I had stalkers in New York. And they knew that I had a child, so it was getting increasingly dangerous to my family to still be on the Lower East Side. So no, I think it was the right move to get out of there and to come here. Also, Scotland has, as part of the UK, has National Health Service. So medical care is free here. I mean, one of the questions I'm always asked, like when someone hears my accent, oh, where are you from? New York. First of all, they say, oh, I've always wanted to go to New York. But they always, like, the third or fourth question is, how come nobody there wants free health care? Like, why do they want to pay for it? I don't understand. I'm like, please, I don't know. I can't help you with this. So there's that. And if he decides to go to university, the university will be free.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I don't know. We came back to New York last year, and I'll be in New York in July. He really enjoyed going to New York. It sparked some memories and stuff. But also, he was last year when he was 16. Because I've been, Hamill's song, "Daddy, Do You Do Drugs?" or whatever that song is.
Yeah. Yeah. Inquiring Minds, I think it's called.
Inquiring Minds. And the chorus is, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna lie, I'm gonna lie. So I've been sort of parsing out as he grows up, who his dad is, just so I don't like overwhelm him too quickly as far as my adventures on the Lower East Side. But going back there was cool because we walked into a couple of we walked into this one museum. It was like on Avenue C. It was like the Museum of the Lower East Side. And they had all these pictures of the Tompkins Square Park riots and stuff. And I was able to go, look, Henry, there I am in that
wow.
picture. That's me there,
Well, what does he know so far? Like, does he know about like the music scenes, or does he know a little bit, or like what all does he know right now?
He knows most of it now.
Okay.
He knows most of it now. Yeah, he knows most of it now.
Does he think you're cool?
As much as anybody does. Well, you'd have to ask him. I played the Mercury Lounge last year, and he came to the show. And so that was his first time seeing me do a show that I didn't edit anything from him. Ed brought up Detroit a little bit differently, like his son Detroit, such a cool name.
Yeah.
I think, Ed exposed him to the show business side of things, right from the beginning. But he saw me for the first time was at Mercury Lounge, and I didn't edit anything,
Mm-hmm.
And I came backstage afterwards and he was there and I said, "So, what'd you think?" And he said, "Everybody always tells me about you, but finally getting to see it for myself, it was amazing." And that was one of the best moments of my entire life when he
Aw.
said that. It was like every dad point bell just rang. I was like, "Yes."
That's awesome, man. Is he following the footsteps? Does he do music or what's he into?
He has a guitar in his room and he plays a little bit. He told me he writes raps, but he's not ready to share them with me yet. So my
Okay.
feeling is his stuff is way more X-rated than my stuff.